My name is Liam Hart. I'm 41 years old. I design houses, not the flashy kind with glass walls and rooftop pools, but real homes. The kind families grow into. Safe, functional, predictable. I like that word, predictable. My wife, Julia, is a literature professor at the university 2 miles from our townhouse. She teaches modern novels and still leaves notes in the margins of her books. We met at a faculty mixer I was dragged to by a friend. She quoted Woolf over wine. I remember thinking, this woman reads people the way I read floor plans. We were married within 2 years. Not a whirlwind, not a drama, just a steady burn that made sense. She understood my silence. I respected her storm. Now, 7 years later, we have a son. Noah. He's 6. Kind, observant, a little too serious for a first grader. He builds space stations out of Legos and insists I keep every one on my office shelf. They're for inspiration, he says. And honestly, he's not wrong. We live in a narrow townhouse near campus, sunlight pouring through east-facing windows every morning. We drink coffee at the kitchen counter. She reads student papers. I sketch porch lines and second-story angles. We've made a life, carefully, consciously, like a blueprint we both agreed on. At least, that's what I thought. Lately, something shifted. Julie has always been intense about her work. Late nights prepping lectures, obsessive footnotes, animated rants about student laziness. But now, her department meetings are more frequent. Emergency workshops pop up with less and less warning. She used to leave her laptop open, sticky notes everywhere. Now, it's always closed. Password protected. At first, I didn't question it. We're adults. We trust each other. I never once checked her messages or tracked her calendar. That's not who I am. But it's hard to ignore patterns. The way she started picking her earrings more carefully on weekdays. The perfume I hadn't smelled since our 5th anniversary, suddenly back in rotation. Her phone never leaves her side anymore, even in the shower. And our evenings, once filled with shared tea and long, bookish conversations, are now quiet. Unnaturally quiet. We're still polite. Still functional. Still fine. In that brittle, don't look too closed way. One night, I stood in the doorway while she graded papers on the couch. Her hair was tied back. Her glasses slid low on her nose. She didn't look up when I said, "You okay?" "Just tired," she replied. Then, "These essays are brutal." I nodded. She didn't elaborate. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared at the backsplash tiles I installed last spring. The grout lines were flawless. Clean. Measured. So why did everything else feel crooked? Maybe it's nothing, I told myself. Maybe I'm just tired too. Maybe. But deep down, some quiet part of me had already felt it. That first, imperceptible tremor. The kind that comes right before the fault line opens. And once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. You just wait for the next one. It was Noah's first solo piano recital. He'd been practicing the same 2-minute piece for weeks, something light and lyrical, but his small hands took it seriously. Every evening after homework, he'd sit at the old upright by the window and play, stopping only when he made a mistake so minor it made my heart ache to see him frustrated. Mom said she'd come early. He told me that morning, lacing his shoes with nervous fingers. So she can sit in the front row. She will, I said, adjusting his collar. She promised, right? He nodded, then added quietly. She said she'd wear the red scarf. Julia always wore a red scarf on special days. She'd started the tradition during Noah's kindergarten art show. So you can find me in the crowd, she told him. He believed it made her magic, a superhero's cape in disguise. The recital started at 6:30. We arrived at 6:10. The folding chairs filled fast. I saved one beside me with her coat draped over the seat, checking my phone every few minutes. No messages. 6:25, nothing. 6:30, the lights dimmed. Still nothing. I texted, "Where are you?" "We're starting." 2 ticks. No reply. Noah's name was third on the program. He sat up straight when they called him, back rigid, lips pressed together. When he took the stage, he scanned the audience, eyes flicking left, right. I held up my hand and waved. He smiled barely, but I saw it. The flicker of disappointment behind his eyes. The empty chair beside me. No red scarf. He played beautifully. Not perfectly, but close. He bowed quickly and ran off stage to where I stood waiting. His voice was small. Did she see it? I swallowed. No, buddy. She had an emergency meeting. He looked down at his shoes. But she promised. I know, I said, resting a hand on his shoulder. And you were incredible. She'll be proud. He nodded, but something dimmed in him. That quiet flicker of a child learning something he shouldn't have to understand. That absence, it hurt more than a fight, more than raised voices or slammed doors. It was emptiness. Cold. Unspoken. After we got home, I helped him into pajamas and read his favorite bedtime book, my voice catching a little at the familiar words. When he finally fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. At 8:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Julia. Hey, I'm so sorry. There was an emergency department meeting. I couldn't get out of it. Please tell Noah I'll make it up to him. I love you. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I opened the rideshare app and ordered a car. I needed air. Movement. Something. 10 minutes later, I stood in line at our old cafe, the one she loves, and ordered her usual almond milk latte, extra hot, 1 pump hazelnut. I didn't know why. Maybe to talk. Maybe to pretend things weren't falling apart. Maybe I needed to prove to myself that it was still possible to fix this. Latte in hand, I walked toward the university. But something stopped me. A sudden thought. A flicker of doubt I didn't want to name. Instead of heading to her office, I turned left. Toward downtown. Toward the bookstore. The next morning, I dropped Noah off at school like any other day. His backpack bounced on his shoulders, mismatched socks poking above his sneakers. He turned back before entering the building and gave me a thumbs up. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. I went home and opened the folder on my laptop. Wednesday. The images were still there. Cold, quiet proof. Julia. Him. The table. Her hand. I stared at his face. I needed to know who he was. What kind of man touched another man's wife like that in plain sight, in a place she once called sacred? It didn't take long. I remembered something Julia had said weeks ago, a visiting scholar in her department. Some British poet giving guest lectures on modern verse. Oliver, she'd said. Oliver Carr. I typed the name into the university directory. There he was. Dr. Oliver Carr, visiting from the UK. Focused on post-structuralism and intimate poetic forms. There was even a profile photo. The same soft smile. The same disheveled curls. A polished fraud. His bio said he'd been at the university since October. That lined up. I clicked through links. Guest lectures. Panel discussions. A recorded interview on the school's YouTube channel. And finally, a news article, a university announcement. Dr. Carr is currently engaged to Ms. Claire Jennings, an art curator at the Langston Gallery. Engaged. That was the crack in the wall I didn't know I needed. I looked her up next. Claire Jennings. She had a professional Instagram, clean and curated. Abstract sculpture shots. Gallery lighting. Artsy book covers. And buried in between, a photo of her and Oliver at a rooftop gala. He was in a navy suit. She wore green. The caption read, 6 months until we say I do. I sat back, exhaled slowly. This man wasn't just dishonest. He was double-timing his own fiancée. And Julia knew. She had to. She wasn't stupid. She was deliberate. Methodical. Just like me. But I had something now. Someone else this mattered to. Someone else who deserved to know. I didn't want to be reckless. Showing up at her gallery would be too much. Email felt impersonal. But Instagram, that could work. Professional, but direct. I typed carefully. Hello, Ms. Jennings. My name is Liam Hart. I need to speak with you privately regarding your fiancé, Oliver Carr. It's a personal matter. Please let me know if we can meet discreetly. I promise this is not a joke, and it's not malicious. It's important. I sent the message. Then I waited. The rest of the day passed in strange fragments. Emails I didn't answer, meetings I rescheduled, meals I skipped. I kept checking my phone like a man waiting for a call from a hospital. Finally, that evening, a reply came. I need to know more. What's this about? My hands trembled. I responded immediately. It concerns a serious breach of trust. I don't want to share the details over messages. Would you consider meeting in person? Somewhere neutral? A minute passed. Then another. Then, tomorrow. 3 p.m. Montrose Tea House. Don't be late. Montrose was quiet that time of day. Soft jazz, slow pours, couples hunched over laptops and ceramic teacups. She walked in 5 minutes early. Claire Jennings was tall, elegant, effortlessly put together. A soft gray coat, a silk scarf, dark eyes that scanned the room like she was used to making quick judgments. She spotted me. I stood. "Ms. Jennings?" She nodded. "Claire." We sat. I didn't waste time. I pulled out my phone, turned it toward her. 1 photo. 2. 3. She stared. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. Then she scrolled. Her fingers trembled slightly. Her expression stayed controlled, but something in her jaw tightened. She looked down at the final image, Julia's hand resting under Oliver's, mid-laugh. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "How long?" "Months," I said. "At least since November. Every Wednesday evening. Same place." She nodded once. Said nothing. "I'm sorry," I added, and I meant it. She looked up. Her eyes were damp, but not weak. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing. Except, maybe your help." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I want them to see us. Together. Just once. Let them understand we know. Let them sit in their betrayal and feel the silence they left behind." She was quiet. Then she asked, "Where?" "Tallow and Thorn. Their usual reading nook. Next Wednesday." She studied me. Then she nodded. "I'll be there." The days leading up to Wednesday moved strangely, both fast and unbearably slow. I went through the motions of work, packed Noah's lunches, answered clients with mechanical precision. But underneath it all, something simmered. A quiet, restrained readiness. Like standing at the edge of a frozen lake, waiting for the first crack. Claire and I only exchanged a handful of messages after the tea shop. She asked for copies of what I had, emails, screenshots, booking receipts. I sent it all, organized and time-stamped. She replied once with a simple, "Enough. Let's do it." On Tuesday night, I stood in front of my closet longer than I should have. It felt absurd, caring what to wear for this. But still, I chose carefully. A dark button-down Julia had always liked. Clean jeans. A simple watch. Nothing dramatic. Just composed. Like me. Wednesday afternoon, I told Julia I had a client meeting that might run late. She barely looked up from her phone. "Okay," she said too quickly. No questions. No guilt. Only distance. By 6:05 p.m., I was parked a block from the bookstore. Claire was already waiting under a street lamp, her coat drawn tight, her hair pinned back neatly. "Are you ready?" she asked. I gave a small nod. "As ready as I'll ever be." We didn't talk much on the way to the shop. Didn't need to. We walked side by side like strangers bound by the same storm. The bookstore bell chimed as we entered. The scent of cinnamon and old pages hit me instantly, familiar and brutal. A young clerk smiled and motioned us toward the back. "Your table's ready," she said. "Just across from the poetry section." Exactly as planned. We took our seats. 2 chairs, 1 table, 1 perfect vantage point. I scanned the alcove beyond the shelves. There they were. Julia, her back to us. Her body language relaxed. Animated. Oliver sat across from her, notebook open, a half-finished latte between them. His eyes were fixed on her face with that same soft attentiveness I'd seen through the window days ago. They were deep in conversation, heads tilted inward. She laughed again, that same open laugh I hadn't heard in months. Claire sat beside me, posture straight, her hands folded tightly in her lap. We watched them sip, smile, lean closer. At one point, Oliver brushed a strand of Julia's hair behind her ear. That gesture hit me like a punch to the chest. That was mine. Claire reached across the table and laid a hand on mine. Firm, grounding. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. We just sat in silence, sipping tea we didn't taste, watching the performance across the aisle, letting them feel safe, letting them believe they were still invisible, until we made ourselves seen. At 6:27, I stood. Claire followed. We crossed the narrow aisle quietly, like ghosts stepping into reality. I stopped beside their table and spoke. Calm, measured, precise. What an interesting coincidence. Julia froze. I saw her body tense before her eyes even lifted. She turned slowly, like someone hoping to wake from a bad dream before it finished. Then she saw me. Her face went white. Oliver looked up next, confusion turning quickly to recognition, and then dread. Claire stepped beside me and said, evenly, "Hello, Oliver. I believe you know Liam. I'm Claire, your fiancée." The silence that followed was so thick, I could feel the shelves around us breathing. Oliver's hand, which had been resting on Julia's, dropped to his lap like it had been burned. Julia's mouth opened, but no words came out. Just a small, broken inhale. I pulled an envelope from my coat and laid it gently on the table in front of Julia. Claire mirrored me, same movement, same envelope, in front of Oliver. Separation papers. Already signed. Already real. "I suggest you read that carefully," I said. "It's all been prepared." Julia finally found her voice, small, desperate. "Liam, please. Not here." I looked at her. Really looked. Her face, the one I once knew better than my own, now looked like a stranger's mask cracking at the seams. "There's nothing left to talk about here," I said. "Or at home." Claire's voice was steel. "We didn't come to argue. We came to end the performance." We stood for a beat longer, letting them feel it. The truth. The exposure. The walls collapsing. Then we turned and walked away. Not fast. Not flustered. Just steady. Just done. Outside, the air was sharp and cold, but it felt like clarity. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like weeks. Claire looked over at me. "That," she said, "went exactly as it needed to." I nodded. It wasn't closure. Not yet. But it was power. Taken back. I slept like a stone that night. Not because I felt peace, but because the weight I had carried for weeks had finally been dropped. There was nothing left to guess, to spy on, to confirm. The mask was off. The act was over. Julia didn't come home, and I didn't wonder where she was. The next morning, I woke to 6 missed calls. All from her. No voicemail. Just her name, over and over again. I didn't call back. Instead, I packed Noah's lunch, tied his shoes, and walked him to school. He asked if Mom would be home for dinner. I told him gently, "Not tonight." He didn't ask why, just nodded, looking down at his hands. Like he already knew. By noon, Julia showed up at my office. Hair pulled back, eyes swollen but determined. She walked past my receptionist like she still had a right to. "Liam," she said, stopping in my doorway. "We need to talk." I didn't stand. Just looked up from my screen. "This isn't the place." "I don't care." Her voice was sharp, low. "I need you to listen." I stood slowly, walked around the desk, and nodded to my assistant through the glass. "Give us 5, I said. The door shut behind her. Julia stepped closer, her arms wrapped around herself like armor. "I don't even know where to begin." "Try honesty," I said. She flinched, just slightly. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she started. "Oliver and I, he was a distraction. That's all. It wasn't real." I gave a humorless laugh. "You skipped our son's recital to be with him. You brought him to our place. You made it real." "I was unhappy," she snapped. "You don't even see how distant you've been. How cold." "We stopped talking, Liam." "We stopped talking," I said, "when you started lying." She blinked fast. "I was going to end it. I swear. I just didn't know how." I shook my head. "You knew how? You just didn't want to." There was a long silence. Then, softly, "I never stopped loving you." "That," I said, "makes it worse." I reached behind my desk, pulled out a second copy of the separation papers. "Keep this one. We'll finalize it through the lawyers." She looked at the folder like it might bite her. "I can't lose Noah," she whispered. "You won't," I said. "But the life you knew, the one you burned down, that's already gone." Her face crumpled. "Liam, please. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. And him." She didn't argue, just stood there. Until finally, she turned and walked out, shoulders trembling. Claire messaged me that night. Oliver showed up at my apartment. I didn't let him in. I replied, "Same here." She came to my office. Same script. Same regrets. "They always regret getting caught," she wrote back. We didn't talk about it further. There was nothing else to say, but we both understood the quiet aftermath. The emotional debris. The way the house felt when someone's voice still echoed in the walls. even after they'd left. I stayed at my sister's that weekend with Noah. She didn't ask questions, just set up the guest room and made pancakes in the shape of stars. I sat on the edge of the bed that night and stared at the phone. No new messages. The silence was strange. Not peaceful, not hostile, just waiting. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I had made my move. I had handed over the truth. The rest would come. The days that followed felt unreal, like I was living in a movie where the sound was off. Everything looked familiar, but nothing sounded right anymore. Julia didn't come back to the house. She tried once. She showed up the morning after our confrontation, suitcase in hand, tears already streaking her face before she'd even rung the bell. But I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched her from the upstairs window as she stood there, breathing hard, wrapped in that same red scarf she promised Noah she'd wear to his recital. The same scarf she'd left in the bookstore coat hook last week. After a few minutes, she walked away. That was the last time she tried to come inside. I hired movers on a Wednesday while Julia was teaching. I took what I needed, my clothes, my books, my laptop, the Legos Noah built for me. I left the rest. The townhouse wasn't home anymore. I found a furnished apartment across the river. Nothing special, just white walls, clean counters, no memories. It was exactly what I needed. A blank space. The first night I slept there, Noah stayed at my sister's. The silence was deafening. No thump of little feet. No soft breathing from the next room. No clink of Julia's teacup against the sink. Just me, a lamp, and the quiet hum of starting over. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurting, but because the hurt had gone deeper than tears. It was bone deep now. Claire and I checked in once or twice a week. No small talk, no flirtation. Just mutual survival. He emailed again. She texted one morning. Said he misses my laugh. I blocked him. Good. I wrote back. Julia dropped off a letter. 8 pages of poetry and guilt. Burn it, she replied. She was already applying to new curatorial positions. Chicago, maybe, she said once. New skyline. Clean start. I told her I hoped she got it. And I meant it. There was something comforting about knowing she'd be gone soon, not out of coldness, but clarity. We were meant to cross paths to survive this moment, not to build something on its ruins. One Sunday afternoon, I sat Noah down. The Legos were spread out across the living room rug. He was building a rocket. I said his name gently. He looked up, blue bricks in his hands. Buddy, I need to tell you something. He blinked. Waited. Mom and I, we're not going to live in the same house anymore. A long pause. Then, did you have a fight? Yes, I said honestly. A really big one. He nodded, his face unreadable. Do you still love her? He asked quietly. I swallowed hard. I love you. And I always will. That's what matters. He didn't cry. He just leaned into me, head on my chest, and said, okay. That, okay, broke me more than any shouting match ever could have. I filed for divorce the next morning. I also filed for primary custody. Not to punish Julia, but because Noah needed routine. Mornings, homework, bedtime. I could give him that. Julia could still be his mother, but she wouldn't be my partner again. I was done romanticizing loyalty at the cost of self-respect. She texted, called, emailed. Sometimes she begged. Sometimes she reasoned. Once, she left a packet of old photos and handwritten notes on the hood of my car. I didn't open them. She showed up at my new studio once. My assistant called security before I had to. Eventually, she stopped. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was tense, waiting, like the eye of a storm that might start up again at any time. But I didn't flinch. Not anymore. For the first time in years, I was living in truth. Brutal, raw, unglamorous truth. And I could breathe. It started with a message from an unknown number. Liam, this is Oliver Carr. Please, can we meet? I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Why? His answer came fast. I've resigned. Leaving the university. There are things you should know about Madeline. Even reading his name made something in my chest tighten. But what caught me off guard was the phrase, leaving the university. That wasn't in the script. That wasn't part of the post-affair fantasy. What would that mean for Julia? For him? For a moment, I felt that same flicker of dangerous hope. The one you try to ignore because it's poisoned at the root. I needed clarity. But I wouldn't go alone. I forwarded the message to Claire. He wants to meet. Says he's leaving. Do you believe him? Maybe, she replied. I want proof. I want to look him in the eyes. We agreed to meet Oliver at a small cafe between campus and downtown. A neutral place. No shadows to hide in, no corners to whisper in. He arrived late, disheveled, pale, exhausted. He looked like a man undone, the polished professor now hollowed out by his own wreckage. His blazer was wrinkled, his shirt still tucked, but sloppily. His face was unshaven, and the circles under his eyes were no longer subtle. He sat across from us slowly, like the chair weighed more than it should. Thank you for coming, he said. We didn't respond. Claire spoke first. Is it true? You're resigning. He nodded. Effective immediately. I've accepted a position in California. Does Julia know? I asked, careful to keep my voice level. No, he said. Not yet. I haven't told her. Claire leaned forward. Why tell us? He looked down at his hands, then back at us. Because I owe you both the truth. That made me laugh. A short, bitter sound. No, I said. You owed us honesty months ago. Now you're just trying to unburden yourself. He didn't argue. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, he said softly. Claire cut in. But you did. Every step of the way, you made choices. Now you're running. He didn't deny it. He just nodded. I've told my family the wedding's off, he said. I've already arranged to have your things packed, Claire. They'll be shipped wherever you want. She didn't thank him, didn't nod, just clenched her jaw and looked out the window. I stayed quiet for a while, watching him. He wasn't a monster. That's the thing. He was just small, weak, the kind of man who mistakes charm for character, who craves admiration and panics when faced with accountability. Eventually, I stood. I don't care where you go, I said. California, the moon, doesn't change what happened. He looked up, regret swimming behind tired eyes. I understand, he said. Claire stood next to me. You're not forgiven, she said. Not by me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He lowered his head. I know. We left him there, slumped at the table, a man who finally realized the story he'd been telling himself had no ending. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. Claire and I walked in silence for a few minutes. Then I asked, what now? She exhaled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Now we wait. For the paperwork. For the dust to settle. She looked at me, her expression softer than I'd seen in weeks. And then, she said, we rebuild. I nodded. Separately. I asked. She hesitated, just long enough to let the question breathe, then gave the faintest smile. One day at a time. 3 days passed after the cafe meeting before Julia reached out again. This time, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't begging. It was just a message. Did he tell you? I stared at the screen. Not because I didn't expect it, but because of how quickly she'd shifted. No preamble. No shame. Yes, I replied. He told me he's leaving. That you didn't know. That he's gone. A moment passed. Then, I didn't ask him to leave. I didn't want him to. And then, I want you. Us. Our life. I'm sorry. I still love you. I didn't reply. Not then. Not for hours. I spent the evening with Noah, building a Lego pirate ship, watching him carefully place each brick like it mattered more than anything in the world. And maybe it did. At bedtime, he asked me, will Mommy come live with us again someday? I kissed the top of his head. I don't think so, buddy. Because you're mad? No, I said gently. Because some things don't go back to how they were. But we'll be okay. You and me. He nodded, already half asleep. That night, I finally answered Julia's message. There's no going back. Not from this. Not for me. She responded within minutes. Please just talk to me in person. You can't throw away 7 years. I didn't. I typed back. You did. With every lie. Every meeting. Every Wednesday. There was no reply after that. But the next morning, I saw her car parked across the street from my sister's house. She was sitting in the driver's seat, head in her hands. I didn't go out. Didn't wave. Didn't text. I just stood behind the curtain and watched her sit in the mess she made. When she finally drove away, I felt something shift inside me. Not victory, not vengeance. Just space. Breathing room. Claire texted around noon. He showed up at my gallery last night. Crying. I didn't let him in. I'm proud of you, I wrote. Hold the line. You too, she replied. We're almost through the worst of it. The next few days were filled with logistics. I signed the divorce papers, moved more of Noah's things into the apartment, formalized the custody schedule, weekdays with me, weekends with Julia for now. It wasn't perfect, but it was structure. And right now, structure was enough. Julia stopped calling, stopped writing, stopped trying. It felt strange, not like peace, but like walking through a room where a fire had burned out. The heat was gone, but the smell remained. Still, I moved forward. I cooked meals, paid bills, helped Noah with math homework. One night, I took him to the bookstore, not the one Julia and I used to love. A new one, across town. Fresh, untouched. He picked out a comic book. I picked out a blank notebook. At the cafe in the back, I opened it, pen hovering over the first page. Then I started writing. Not about Julia, not about betrayal, not about pain, just about a man learning how to live again. It had been 2 months since that evening at the bookstore. 2 months since Julia's betrayal was laid bare under soft lights and cinnamon-scented pages. Since Claire and I stood like quiet judges in the same poetry alcove where love had once been something sacred. And now, it was just a Wednesday. I had just finished dropping Noah off at school. He waved from the gate, hoodie half-zipped, backpack bouncing. I watched him walk inside, head held high. He was adjusting. So was I? The apartment was still mostly bare, clean, minimal, nothing that carried weight. But slowly, my life had started to feel like my own again. I had routines, noise, stillness, the kind that wasn't painful anymore. Claire had moved to Chicago. She sent a photo the day she arrived, Lake Michigan glowing beneath a silver sky. The caption read, "New skyline, new story." We still checked in, not often, not intensely, just little pulses of shared survival. "How's the silence?" I texted once. "Quieter now," she replied. "Less echo, more space." One rainy afternoon, I found myself near Tallow and Thorn again. Not by design, just circumstance. A client meeting had run late, and I was killing time. The street was half empty. The air smelled like wet leaves and old wood. I stood across the street for a moment, unsure. Then I crossed. Inside, the bell above the door chimed, the same soft note as always. Nothing had changed. The mismatched chairs, the little coffee bar, the crooked poetry lamp. The poetry corner was empty. I didn't go there. Instead, I found a table in the back, near the window, quiet, unremarkable. I ordered tea, took out my notebook, and I wrote. I didn't write about Julia. Not anymore. I wrote about Noah's laugh when he beat me at Uno, about the smell of fresh paint in my new studio, about the way healing doesn't arrive like a storm, but creeps in, quietly, like light through a dusty window. I wrote about standing up when someone thinks they've broken you. I wrote about being whole again, even in pieces. When I left the bookstore, the sun had come out. The street glistened. I passed a florist on the corner and, without thinking, bought Noah a single sunflower. His favorite. That evening, I cooked pasta while he drew spaceships at the table. After dinner, he looked up and asked, "Are you happy again?" I paused, smiled. "I think I'm getting there." He nodded like that made sense, then went back to coloring Saturn's rings. Sometimes, when it's quiet and the world slows, I still think of Julia. Not in anger, not even in sadness, just in acknowledgement of what we had, what we lost, and what I finally walked away from. People ask me if I regret how it ended. The public exposure, the bookstore, the quiet spectacle. I don't, because I didn't raise my voice. I didn't humiliate her. I handed her the truth. And then I walked out. That corner table may have started with betrayal, but it ended with me, sitting across from no one, writing the first lines of something real, something mine. Enjoyed the story? Give it a like and let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. More powerful stories are just around the corner.